After a typically wonderful breakfast in Omar's Cafe there in the hotel, we headed to the south side of the hotel and boarded the buses for the short trip to the famous Ramesses train station in Cairo. It was a nice train station, but like Southern California, everything looked a little sun-bleached and dusty. And since it doesn't rain in Egypt, the outside of buildings and all kinds of things never get washed off. Once the train arrived, I noticed the cars weren't very new looking, but they weren't broken down looking either. Just a little old, used and sun-bleached on the outside. On the other hand, there was no ugly graffiti on them either. Once underway, I was pleased with how smooth the tracks and the ride was. I've taken Amtrak, and believe me, this was much smoother. Also, the view of the flat Nile Delta land as it zipped by was very nice. On arriving at Alexandria, we once again boarded buses for the tour of the city. Let me say this, Alexandria, especially along the Mediterranean coast, is beautiful and so much more so than Cairo. One of our first stops was the Montaza Palace, built about 100 years ago in a mixture of Turkish and Florentine architecture. The palace itself is closed to the public, but the gardens around it are beautiful and open to the public. We were given time to walk around and take a few pictures. The rock garden near the coast was especially nice to walk around in. Our next stop was the very modern and beautiful Alexandria Museum. Nice thing about this museum is that cameras were allowed. They had beautiful artifacts from all eras of Egyptian history, such as this Greco-Roman statue. Ancient Egyptian artifacts too. This is one of the best pieces from the time of Akhenaten I saw while in Egypt. In terms of quality, I think this stuff was better than the Cairo Museum, except King Tut's stuff, of course. The way the artifacts were lit and displayed was really outstanding. Very nice alabaster canoptic jars, but nothing like King Tut's jars. Those were really beautiful. They even had firearms from the 17th century, including this matchlock musket, helmet, and other weapons. And some very nice early Islamic glassworks. Our next stop was the huge and very modern library of Alexandria, built to replace the one the Christians burned in the 5th century. The library is on several levels, and I had an interesting time looking around at everything. Our next stop was Fort Quaby, which was built by the Turks around 1500. It was built on the site of the famous Pharos lighthouse which was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. It is said that many of the stones used to build the fort came from the lighthouse itself. Other parts of the lighthouse have been found in the bay waters on the side of the fort opposite where I'm standing. For being 500 years old, it certainly looks to be in good shape. Just more Mediterranean coast scenes. As the day came to an end, we boarded the buses for the ride back to Cairo over a very modern superhighway. The sights along this highway were even better than from the train. All along the way, we kept passing these ornate cone-shaped buildings, and I finally got a good picture of one after dozens of tries. They are used for raising a favorite food, pigeons, and you see them on the top of an awful lot of buildings and houses. About dusk, we stopped at a big truck stop and restaurant complex. By this time, the food poisoning from the evening before was starting to hit me pretty hard, and I sure didn't feel like eating anything. However, I did look around, and there was a couple of guys that had a lion cub. I don't know where they got the thing or what they were going to do with it when it got a little older, but I'm sure it was going to be a handful before too long. Well, this completes this day's journey.